are you like a Magic the Gathering fan as well? Like, did the collab? Were you interested in the collab here, or are you just solely a Final Fantasy fan?
No, actually, I had the same experience that you did. I ended up buying
Nice.
the cards because it was Final Fantasy, and now I was like me and my son tried playing a game the other day with whatever little knowledge we saw on YouTube and everything. I mean, I feel like we butchered the game. We didn't know what we were doing, but we were just, trying to get out there and see how to play. But same story that you just said. I saw the Final Fantasy collab and I was like, oh, this is cool. I want to collect the cards. And then I got the cards and I'm like, I want to try to learn and play the game.
Did you think you think you're gonna enjoy the game? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, as soon as I tried it, I was like, this kind of reminds me of like a little bit of, like one of those Yu-Gi-Oh games, but also more chess-like because you get these cards and you kind of build your own deck the way you want to, from what I'm thinking. And one card you could be losing, and then one card could extremely change the game, kind of
Yeah.
like playing chess. But going back to what you were saying, I feel like any game could be great if the community is great because we are creatures of being in a community. So I felt the same way when I was trying to learn how to play D&D, when everybody was really trying to get into it. But the fact that there were so many people who were like willing to like be so patient and be like, yeah, we can teach you and everything. And that just amplifies what's already great with those games, like what you were thinking with Magic the Gathering. Once you get a community that's willing to teach you and help you, that amplifies how great the game is by a lot.
Last episode, we explored fan entry points into Final Fantasy and its universe. This week, we dig a little bit deeper. We dig into the love of this franchise and the impact it's had on all of us. Let's begin our pilgrimage here, in the vast tapestry of video game history. Few stories shimmer with such enduring magic as the saga of Final Fantasy. For nearly 4 decades, this legendary franchise has beckoned players towards distant worlds, to realms woven from crystal dreams, whispered prophecies, and the stirring clash of heroes and villains. Yet, beyond the epic battles and fantastical landscape lies another story. The tale of the devoted community, united not only by pixels and melodies, but by friendships and memories born within these digital kingdoms. Tonight we embark on the journey of Final Fantasy and the vibrant constellation of its fandom. We'll meet passionate fans whose lives have been shaped by these games, explore the moments that sparked revolutions in gaming, and uncover the myths and realities behind the characters that we love and sometimes the games that we love to debate. From epic symphonies to unforgotten party members, from turn-based strategies that has shaped a generation to the moving stories that have echoed across time. This is more than just a documentary. It's a celebration. Celebration of creativity, connection, and then the enduring legacy of Final Fantasy. So let us pass through the threshold where nostalgia and discovery intertwine and begin our quest to understand why these worlds and the people who inhabited them continue to matter. Welcome to Final Fantasy, a story written not by just its developers, but by the countless fans who carry its magic forward, one adventure at a time. This is Untapped Potential. Perhaps the most remarkable legacy that Final Fantasy has left is with its vibrant community that it's inspired. Across continents and generations, fans gather either online or at conventions, concert halls, or even in their living rooms in front of the TV, all bonded by their shared passion for adventure and storytelling. Friendships have grown over their favorite party lineups, fan arts have flourished, and even spirited cosplay brings beloved heroes and villains to life, turning spirited discussions into lifelong connections. This series' true magic is in these moments of unity, where every fan finds a place in the ever-expanding tapestry of Final Fantasy legend.
That's how you and I know each other, is from cosplay. I don't cosplay. I'm not near that talented, but we started doing cosplay and cosplay photography and things like that. And one of the things I'm still, hands down, one of my favorite shoots I ever did was you cosplayed as Tifa for me for a Final Fantasy VII photo shoot. And I know that you are a mild fan of the games, but not a huge like diehard fan. But you really like stepped out. Like the first time because I remember asking like, hey, do you think you could put together a closet Tifa? And then you sent me a photo that night, and it wasn't a closet Tifa. It was like everything from top to bottom. It
Other
was
than
Tifa.
making the little gauntlet.
Yeah. So I loved it. You know, like I said, it's still one of my favorite photo shoots.
She's at least easy, because first you asked about lightning. I was like, that's going to take a little doing.
Yeah.
But Tifa, okay, that's the white top, black skirt, some suspenders. We're good. I got a black wig, red shoes. Cool.
Through the power of editing, we'll throw over a couple of photos of that cosplay photo shoot on this video.
That was a fun photo shoot.
It really was, yeah. It's scary, a little abandoned
dairy
building,
factory,
yeah.
and then like a really cool little bar that let us use some of their space.
Which you know, really, look at like Final Fantasy, you know, all the places we went to for that photo shoot really because I'm a huge Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game, so it reminded me of that world, like from the bar that we shot in for, you know, reminded me of Seventh Heaven from Final Fantasy. The Benederi factory was very much reminiscent of like an abandoned building in Sector 7 of Midgar, you know, so like it was awesome. But really, like this collaboration between Final Fantasy and Magic is really, it's not only bridging the gap between two different worlds, but it's also showing how much crossover there's been already. And this has been the most successful collaboration that Magic has ever had, like financially, and nice. So numbers don't lie. Why do you think it's been so big? Like, as a person who's not necessarily a huge Final Fantasy fan, but has played Magic for a long time, like, why do you think people like me are being drawn into this now?
I think it's just such an like epic and long-lived story already.
Yeah.
With Final Fantasy, all the different characters, you know, over the years, like it gave them a lot of material to pull from. I honestly like, again, I haven't played any of the games. I know some characters in passing.
Yeah.
I've cosplayed one for you. But I think it's just done really well. Like it's so ever present. Even folks who haven't ever played the game, like I see the little chocobo cards. I'm like, oh, those are cute. Those are fun. Like it's bird deck, cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there was just a lot of hype around it. I mean, I'm also, so weird side tangent, but I'm also a Sims player, and it reminds me of them doing a crossover with Star Wars, which was the opposite of this, a very failed crossover. But the idea being, like, Star Wars is huge and ever present, and they expected to bring a lot of Star Wars people to the game by being, you know, by nature of it being something new for Star Wars.
Yeah.
I don't know how successful it was, but there was a lot of the Sims community that was not on board for it. They're like, what the heck are you doing to my game?
Yeah.
I don't think this was the same here. I think like a lot of even Magic players are like, this is a really cool set. It was done well. I think that's what it comes down to. It has to be done well. Because there's been some other crossovers that could have been really good that kind of fell flat on their face, and they've got to put the effort in to really make it worth everyone's while, both the fans of the original content and Magic players who will be using it in tournaments and using it, you know, in modern and playing tournaments with it. So like, it's got to all come together. I think this one did.
Say I'm pretty involved on both ends, because with something like Final Fantasy 14 being my introduction, I've still played it to this day, and you have to build, you know, some friends, some community there in order to play some of the content or have good communication when you're in the middle of a raid or a dungeon or things of that nature. And on the other end with Magic, I live in a big enough city that I'm able to go to multiple card shops, and a lot of people know me by name. They see me around. I jump into a table and I'm able to just start playing. The biggest thing is you just have to be willing to put yourself out there. It is a hard thing to do, especially if you're a more introverted type of person, but being able to just jump out there and one time just say, hey, you know, I see I'll have an extra seat. Do you mind if I sit down and play some Magic? Or, hey, I'm looking for some friends to help me out with this one thing. Or sometimes even going to like a convention or something like that. There's plenty of people that like to do meetups for like things that they're fans of, and Final Fantasy is one that I personally seen around. In fact, I just came from a convention yesterday, and they did a Final Fantasy meetup yesterday, and there's some really cool people dressed up in cosplay, and I got to, be like, oh man, dude, your Buster Sword looks awesome. Oh, your lightning's really cool. Like that sort of thing is a community builder, and you would be surprised how many people are actually interested in the same things that you are.
I think what you're doing is amazing. I think, having, I mean, because we all come from a tribe of gamers, right? That's our community, right? Is gaming, but then it kind of branches off into different subcategories. And at the end of the day, though, I think that support system is very important, and I think that it's nice to have like-minded people do like-minded things to shed light or to explain why it is that we're grown men and we love to play kids video games, right? Because that's the demographic, right? Is kids. But I saw your stuff on TikTok, and I was just like, oh dude, I've always loved like long form media, like podcasts and stuff like that, and just having conversations with people. And I feel like I'm well versed enough to have a conversation to where it's not boring. So I felt like, hey, if this person is looking for people to talk with, I would love to have a conversation, and especially when it comes to talking about something that you're passionate about and talking about something that has had such a huge impact on your life. If anything, I hope that people, after they watch your series, of course, like if there's anything that anybody gets from this, it's, like you said, early on, is don't be afraid to be unapologetic about who you are. I mean, I think a lot of the time, the world that we live in can make it difficult for people to be their true selves. And I struggled with that very early on in my life. It wasn't until I met my wife many years ago, until, when she finally told me, like, it's okay to be you. And it's okay to not be okay sometimes. Like, you don't have to pretend like everything is perfect all the time, because it's not. And I've really like taken those words that she said to me a very long time ago and like made it a part of my, like, the fiber of my being. And that's what I'm trying to teach my kids, to tell them, be who you are. And if people don't want to accept you for that, then that's their loss. But even those people who treat you like that, you still kind of have to, give them the benefit of the doubt, because they probably just don't understand you. And it's unfortunate, but people are either afraid of, or they tend to judge things that they don't understand. And that's what I'm trying to teach my kids. Like, just be yourself, and be who you are, and don't change for anybody, because nobody's worth that.
No journey through Final Fantasy would be complete without mentioning its unforgettable music. From the amazing orchestra scores to the haunting melodies that echo through every world, the series' soundtracks have almost become as iconic as its heroes. These compositions, they do more than just set the mood. They evoke emotion, they mark pivotal moments in the games, and they linger in memory long after the final boss has been defeated. For many fans, the music of Final Fantasy is not just the background, it's the heartbeat of the adventure.
The music, like, Nobuo Uematsu is probably my favorite composer of all time. The music that he's made, like, I'll use that for my D&D campaigns that I run. I steal things from Final Fantasy constantly, and I don't even try and hide it. Like, my players will be like, "Is that from Final Fantasy?" I'm like, "Yes, it is." There are chocobos in the world that I made, because why not? I love chocobos. I love moodles. I love, like, just all of these consistent things throughout Final Fantasy. And, like, there's something for everybody in it. If you love, cute little creatures, you've got your moodles, you've got your cactars, you've got your chocobos. If you want, like, a phenomenal story, like, each game has a great story. I don't think there's a single game that the story isn't amazing yet.
Music as a whole is such a huge part of my life. I grew up very musical. I did the whole band thing when I was in high school. I was in a couple of plays. So, like, music itself has always been very important to me, but because of my nature of always dissecting things and like I guess being sometimes a little over analytical, I've really enjoyed music and like dissecting and listening to a song, but like being able to pick up each instrument and like hear what the instrument is doing. So like when I hear a song, like I never hear the same song twice. It's always something different. It's always something that, oh, I'd never heard that before, or oh, this, okay, whatever. Now, when it comes to Final Fantasy, like Choose Anarchy, I think is a beautiful song. It's especially what it signifies in the game. Like you're coming to the end of the journey, but it's such a hauntingly beautiful song because at the point in the game, spoilers for anybody who hasn't played Final Fantasy X, at the point when you hear that song in the game, like you do hear it a little bit in the title intro before you select new game or load game, but as far as like in the narrative, you hear it right before going to Zanarkand, and at the time of the game, the party has no idea what they're going to do because so you already have the big like, oh, Yuna's gonna die after she defeats Sin, and Tidus is just like, yeah, that's not happening. But they have no idea what they're going to do. So like they're going to Unalesca to try to get the final Aeon, but they have no plan. And it's just like, this could be it. Like this is the end. This is the third act. Like this is it. And the game doesn't end. The game ends not too far after that. But not just that, but like the battle theme for Final Fantasy VII, the fanfare, like like that is just, you can hear that. You can be anywhere in time, right? And if you hear that, it's just going to transport you back to those worlds that you adventured through. Like most of the Final Fantasy not seven, but most of the Final Fantasy games that I've played have all had amazing soundtracks. Like you know, like to the point where, hey Alexa, play the Final Fantasy X soundtrack, or hey Alexa, play the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack. Like I will listen to it while I'm doing stuff around the house or washing dishes or in my car driving. Like for me though, it's an escape. It's like you reminisce about the time you spent in the game, and you could remember exactly, like when you hear that track, you can remember exactly where you were in the game. And then it's like, okay, I think I need to replay Final Fantasy VIII again, or I think I need to replay Final Fantasy 15 again. So I think the music is just as important as the story and the game, because it does the same thing, right? Like it transports you back into that world, and it pulls something out of you to go and revisit it. And I think that's why the Final Fantasy series has lasted such a long time, because not only do they pay attention to gameplay, story, character development, all that, but they do pay attention to the music as well. And I know a lot of people resonate with music as much or if not more than the actual games themselves.
Walk me through like your favorite characters in Final Fantasy. If you had to narrow it down to one character, who is it? Who's your favorite?
Terra.
Terra? Okay.
Yep.
Why? Why is Terra so relatable for you?
Her story, I mean, it was Final Fantasy 3 for the Super Nintendo, but technically it's Final Fantasy 6. But her whole story would just kind of grabbed you and pulled you in, and you wanted to save her.
Yeah.
You wanted to figure out what was going on with her.
You know, that's the cool part about the Final Fantasy world, is that I think a lot of times we underestimate in gaming how attached we get to characters. And how, you know, and I think with Final Fantasy, I always find myself just super attached to not only the world, but the characters in that world.
Yeah.
Almost to where like I obsess when I'm not playing the game about what's going on with them. So with those worlds of Final Fantasy, you know, Midgar, Spira, things like that, is there any world that you're drawn to the most that you love?
I think Midgar would be the one. It kind of almost feels like what we're dealing with now.
It really does. It really does. And man, I think that's when I look at Final Fantasy, especially Final Fantasy VII, you can tell the tones of what the stories are going for, and they're real world tones. You know, you're talking about like with Final Fantasy VII, it's about what are we doing to our Earth and things like that. Final Fantasy X, a lot of religious based topics there and things like that. Why do you think Final Fantasy has been able to be so successful in communicating real world problems in a way that, you know, opened it up for us as gamers to be a part of the conversation?
I think that's exactly why, is because they're relatable. I mean, you can literally dive yourself in there and you're like, I could actually see me living this life.
Do you have a favorite Final Fantasy game?
For including things like sequels, prequels, and all that, Crisis
Yeah.
Core, easily.
Crisis Core. I've actually heard that several times already doing these interviews. So what about Crisis Core stood out to you so much that elevated it to the top for you?
I grew to really like Zack. He
Yeah.
he became my favorite fictional character of all time. And his story. I mean, I'm even though everybody knew when Crisis Core first came out how that was going to end. Actually seeing it, I cried. I cry every time I finish that game. The story is just, it blows me away every time. I love Zack as a character. And it's really cool to see how everything kind of builds up to the original story in 7.
Yeah. I think it gave a lot of, to your point, a lot of depth to 7, and what we got, because I'm never a huge fan of prequels. Like I'd rather advance the story than go back. But with the exception of a few games, every Final Fantasy game is its own self-contained storyline. So I think being able to give some context and some backstory into 7, I think that it really did. It did it justice. So it kind of went a long way to enhancing what you got in 7, and I could see why it would be your favorite for sure, especially if you really like the Zack character.
It's Balthier. He's such a like smooth talker, and like he's like everyone's like, oh, like Vaughn's the main character. Like, no, it's Ash and Balthier. They're the main characters. And like there's so much about his story that just never, and like his like after the game that never gets explored. And like it just really like intrigues me, just the way that he's just all like kind of suave and nonchalant with things, and when it really matters though, like he's gonna be there and he's gonna get out of it. Everyone compares him to Han Solo, and like that's one of my other favorite characters, and so I think it really fits that those two are like some of my favorite characters in any fantasy.
It's a toss-up between Winnoa and Yuna for my favorite female character in the Final Fantasy world.
My favorite female is actually Lulu.
Okay, I love it. Why are you
We
drawn
love
to
a woman that has her own personality and just does what she does flawlessly at that.
I love it.
We love a woman that's in charge, and let's not lie and talk about she doesn't have some huge assets.
Well, I agree. I also love the fact that with Lulu, like she was, like her character was tormented with the death of Wakka's brother, but she knew what she needed to do, and like she just didn't give any fucks along the way. You know what I mean? Like I love it.
We can curse on this.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
All right.
Yeah.
Just making sure, but yes, Lulu's one of those badass warriors, just does her thing. She's been on 3 pilgrimage, and she knows how it ends for the summoner, and she's still there, still supportive. She doesn't want Yuna to do it. However, she's going to be that supportive big sister role and understands what Yuna is going through.
You can't talk about what you do as a fighter without talking about Tifa. So is there anything special about that character that kind of resonates with you, or that you feel personally drawn to the character of Tifa?
I actually love Tifa so much. I have a little keychain of her on my keys, which I should have brought over before the interview. So just Tifa is so cool to me because I had not played Final Fantasy VII, the original, before playing Remake. So when she was brought in, I was like, wow, like she's so cool. She's a martial artist. And so my history with Final Fantasy VII was Remake, Rebirth, Crisis Core, original. And then I just absolutely fell in love with Tifa. Like she's such a great character. She's such a strong woman, and she's not jaded by her past, which I think is really inspiring. She's gone through a lot. I read the traces of Two Pasts, the book about Tifa and Aerith, and it kind of went into Tifa's backstory. Something about Seven is that their character development is just absolutely phenomenal. Like they have gone so in depth. I mean, it's a huge franchise. Like Seven is just one of the biggest games in the series at this point, and they've really gotten into it lately. So we've got a lot of questions answered and a lot of depth to characters that we've known for years. But Tifa, just having gone through everything she went through, where, you know, when Nibelheim was destroyed by Sephiroth, it kind of went into what she did post destruction of Nibelheim. So, you know, she was finding her own life outside of her hometown, and she was in the Sector 8 slums, and she was in a lot of debt, and she was trying to make it work. She had the medical bills from where, you know, Sephiroth sliced her. So she was trying to make it, and she was doing the best she could, and she had so much that just ended up, I guess, like, it could have made her a very jaded person, and it could have made her really bitter. And, you know, while she's not exactly as optimistic seeming as Aerith, for example, she is very optimistic in her own way. And she kind of takes that, I think she takes those feelings and kind of puts them into her training. And I can really relate to that. And I can really relate to having a lot of things happen in my life and trying to not let that affect me, and trying to just, if I can, put it in my training or something like that. But Tifa was a great example of a woman and a martial artist, and I just think she's amazing. She is probably top tier. She's not my favorite character, but she is one of my favorites. She's way up there.
This might be a cop-out answer, but like everything about that game is great. The story in that game, to me personally, I don't think it's been met. I think it's the best of all time, of any game entirely. I do like 7 a lot. I still think 6 takes it for me specifically. And just there's tons of characters, but if I had to pick like a couple, the villain Kefka, he's iconic. He's unhinged. He just does what he wants and kind of just gets away with it. And like,
I don't think you get a Sephiroth without Kepka. Like,
no, you definitely don't.
Yeah.
Kefka is definitely that template to have it there. But I mean, he's just all over the place. He's completely unhinged as a character. And, you know, Tara's journey throughout that entire thing, where she's trying to find herself in between trying to figure out who she is as a person. I just love everything about that, because there's so much loss and despair that happens through 6 that you're just like, what is going on? Like, how are we letting this unhinged person getting away with this? And it definitely tugs on that perspective. Ironically, I do really like Kefka a lot as a villain. He is so unhinged and crazy.
Final Fantasy IX, easily. It feels like the best representation of what a Final Fantasy game has to offer. Not that it's the best one per se, but like, and it all comes down to the grand scheme of things. This feels like the perfect. If somebody asked what Final Fantasy is, I would truly pitch them, this is Final Fantasy IX. It has the great open, expansive world. It has the characters that not everybody likes, but as you deep dive into them as a player, you begin to feel for a lot of them. Like Zidane's character, I love his character, especially in the latter half of the game. Steiner and his whole stoicness that he battles with. Garnet, Aiko, Vivi. Vivi's an amazing character in the entirety of Final Fantasy. Even Amarant. I like Amarant. He gets a lot of hate because he just kind of joins in the last quarter of the game, pretty much. But I like every character and their entire story as it goes through. It just feels like the perfect representation of love, hardships, trial, error, hatred, loss, sadness. It's just, I think it's a perfect representation of a Final Fantasy, if somebody asks.
Vincent, I've always liked Vincent's character. You know, even though early on the adaptation of Final Fantasy VII, the first Polygon make, it didn't have a lot of character design. You know, it took a lot of optional direction to really get his character design.
Yeah.
But I really liked the actual character himself, and then once you kind of learn his backstory, kind of brings him full force. You know what I'm saying? So that was always been my favorite. Even today, still kind of my favorite. I did a lot of artwork of him and things like that. So
That's awesome. So I know that you kind of shared a little bit with me of some of the stuff that you involve yourself with in Final Fantasy and things like that. Do you want to speak about any of the community driven stuff and fan art and that kind of stuff that you do?
yeah, I mean, I started artwork early in life. A lot of hand drawing. That really got me into this different types of art. Nowadays, I do a lot of Photoshop, things like that. But write books now. A lot of that's driven off of a lot of early, like 7, 6 storylines that really kind of, in my persona, I would say, it's kind of brought forth my books and my storytelling.
Yeah. Now, where can people find any of it? Have you posted any of it online for people to see?
Yeah. You can find a link to both Amazon and Barnes Noble copies on my TikTok. I also have Instagram by the same name, Willow Everly, author. But really, you can just search up Legend of Ran on Google and find it. It's been out for about 1.5 years now. It's a series, so it's still in progress. But a lot of the storyline is really driven by those early RPGs, you know, Lord of the Rings, a lot of Final Fantasy in it, you know, things like that.
It's going to be 9, followed closely by 10.
Okay.
And that's just because, again, you know, 10 being the first one on the PlayStation 2, I think.
Yeah, it was.
I think that's right. And, you know, getting that and that just being kind of my go-to game for the longest time on PlayStation 2. Like, I'm a small town kid, you know, we didn't have a video game store in town. So, you know, you had to drive a while, 30, 45 minutes to get to the nearest game store. So it was, you know, getting new games was a birthday and Christmas only type of thing. You know, it wasn't just going out on a Tuesday like, oh, the new Final Fantasy game came out. Come on, Grandma, let's go get it. It wasn't that simple because Walmart didn't always carry the most recent games back then. So it was usually going to like a JCPenney or Sears or what was it? Like KB Toys or EB Games or something like that to get your game. So it was, you know, you only get a couple of times a year a fresh game. So Final Fantasy X I sat on for a while and can remember, you know, that being the first game that was my goal of I'm going to 100% this game. Like, it's going to happen. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get the strategy guide. I'm going to do everything I can in this game. And then realizing, like, you know, 80, 90 hours in that that's not something I'm probably ever going to be able to do because this game is just, there's so much to it. It's so robust. So, 10 was a big one for me as well. But yeah, 9 was like my hands down favorite with 10 a close second.
Yeah, with 10, it would be so hard to 100% that game because, like, I'm just thinking of just the dodging 200 lightning strikes in a row when you're walking that road. Like, I couldn't even get 2 in a row, man. There's no way I would have been able to get 200. And the fact that they didn't even give you like a counter, you just had to kind of, you just
had to know.
We're going to be hitting 7 a lot. My favorite character is Zach Fair.
Okay.
I've heard that Fair.
Yeah.
I've played Crisis Core. I actually platinumed the remake for the PS5. I platinumed that one. And it's funny that in the original like context of 7 and what they were trying to do, Zach wasn't supposed to be a character. He wasn't even supposed to be part of the story, the narrative. But he was a way for them to foil how Cloud is reacting to the world and how he's coming into his own. And that's how Zach kind of was born. And just the way he carries himself, he's experiencing so much on the inside and dealing with so much as a soldier that, you know, when he puts on that smile, you know it's because he doesn't want others to feel bad for him.
Yeah.
When he picks up that sword, he just remembers his mentor. And I think we can all really relate to that. We have somebody that's been before us that, shows us the way, and then they're gone, and it hits a lot harder that way. Now, in the narrative of Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII, Zack actually has to fight his mentor because he's a result of genetic experimentation by his own father. So it hits hard because you're the main character, you're trying to do what's right, and now you have to kill the person that taught you how to be that way.
Yeah.
So it's facing mortality in a sense, but it's also failing, like asking about your values and what you cherish most, family, friends, that kind of thing, which they touch on again in Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. With how much work they've done with 7, I mean, wow, they have stretched that world almost to its breaking point, even with the remake.
Oh, I'm going to really basic answer. A lot of people say it's 7, but honorable mention is Crisis Core. I absolutely adore Crisis Core. 10 is also up there, but honestly, 16 has taken over 7 because 16. A lot of people don't like 16, and I understand why. But I personally really love 16. It was different, and it was a bit darker. But the characters are so like I don't know how to say. The characters are just really, really. They meant something, like you cared, right? And with 16 is one of those things where it's like they tried something different. And did it work for everybody? No. But for those that it worked, it just clicked. Like I was like finding myself sitting there, like trying to do every quest, trying to sit there and figure out, okay, well, how can I optimize? How can I make, Clive, be the best? It was just 16 is just, I don't know. I have a lot to say about 16. I won't stay on 16, but 16 is honestly, I would say my favorite. It's 16 and 7 is like right here.
I love that. It's exciting to hear because I haven't played 16 yet. And as I talk to people, I've met a lot of people who are like 16 is fantastic, and so I'm looking forward to playing it. Is there with the games that you've played, the Final Fantasy games you played, is there any particular moment in any of the games that really stick out to you that potentially like evoke some kind of emotional response for you, or that you just adore or love?
So I'm gonna jump into 16 really quick. It's not a spoiler. I'm just gonna accept the truth.
Spoil it. It's my fault. I haven't played it. Yeah, spoil it if you need to.
I really want you to experience it fully, but I'm just gonna say accept the truth moment. Those who played it will know. And when you get there, you'll be like, wow, I understand. Yes. So the accept the truth moment is really powerful and really emotional. That's all I'm gonna say on that. For 7, it's gonna be Cosmo Canyon with the planetarium and Bugenhagen.
Yeah. Your choice.
Yeah. Of course, it was really pretty to look at when I was younger, and as I got older, I'm like, wow, like I can really appreciate how much detail they put into this, like the little pixels, the little blocks. But with the remake, right? Like just the fact that they wanted to remake these games, like 7 in general, which is a really fan favorite. The way how 7 looks in general and the remakes and remake is amazing. But although those are pretty, I will always go to the originals because those have always been like, it's not something you saw like back in the day.
Right. I texted my wife. I had her bring me something because I think it sounds like Squall is probably your favorite character. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, for sure.
So I thought you might get a kick out of this. I found this at a Comic-Con about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's been a prized gem in my collection. It is a life-size
dude,
Gunblade.
That is awesome.
Logo here on the blade, key chain here at the end, and so it actually has a trigger action.
Oh, that is
as
sick.
well.
That
So
is so sick.
This hangs in my front room, and is I can't tell you how many times my kid has wanted to take it off the wall and play with it. I'm like, absolutely not, man. So I thought you were.
Yeah, that's totally. So I remember. It's funny that you bring that up. I had like a sword phase when I was in like graduating high school, like going into college, and they didn't have gunblades, but they had they had, it wasn't the Buster Sword, it was the sword that Cloud had in Advent Children. That was like the 5 different swords that you put together.
Yeah,
but I bought that, and it was massive. It was just like but like the swords came apart.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I was like, I've been in my parents' basement somewhere, but
that's
still,
awesome.
Like, it was, but yeah, that gunblade is sick, man. That's awesome. That's so cool.
Of course, even a legacy series like Final Fantasy has their awkward phases. They gave us moments that left our head scratching, whether it was questionable haircuts or love triangles that made no sense, or plot twists out of left field that kind of left us wondering what they were thinking. But hey, it is fandom, and even the less favorited entries of Final Fantasy spark debate and laughter, and they give us some pretty cool cutscenes. But again, they all can't be our favorite.
Me personally, 13.
Okay. Listen, you're not alone. That's
So
my least favorite of the Final Fantasy franchise. So, what did
I
you
just
not like about it?
the thing that I didn't like. So the first game was okay for me. It's everything after that I just didn't like because of how that story ends.
Yeah.
It just it it made me wish that I had never played any of them. And I was just like, well, that I can't get that time back. I was just like,
Yeah.
well, that kind of sucks personally. I was just like, wow, okay. But just in terms of that, and I I will say 8, I didn't like the way that combat worked, but as a game, I think it's fine. I could not for the life of me figure out how that junction system was supposed to work, and I just couldn't. I watched somebody else play it because I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. I think with 13, I felt, we just talked about like the game's not dumbing things down. Everything was exposition in that game. It was like we had to every few minutes we had to stop. We had to have this long drawn out dialogue about things that
There's a reason why it's called the hallway simulator.
Yeah, exactly. You'd mentioned a couple that you didn't like, so I'm not going to put you on the spot for them. But
I'll go there.
what-
I just it might get some interaction, but I'll
let's
go
hear
there.
it. I love it. Let's hear it. Which ones do you think are bad?
Okay, there's 2 of them, 12 and 15. Now, 12 might be my own hang up. I've tried multiple times. I haven't been able to get through it, which is, funny because a lot of people don't like 13 and I love 13. So with 12, I really think it's just the combat. I just could not kick it with the combat. And it's not that I'm just strictly turn-based. I love some action games, action-based combat, but it's just, I couldn't get past it. And when it's like such a big component of the game, it wasn't something I could really skip through. I know some of the characters are great, but as many times as I try to attempt to play it, I just can't do it. And then the flip side with 15, now, I will say they did a lot of updates to it, and I've never played it after. I love the skin of 15. Like, I love, character story, but what it felt like to me was that, like, it was too big of a world, and it was just kind of empty to me. It just, and also I wasn't like too crazy about the combat, which is wild because one of my favorite Final Fantasies is Crisis Core. Like, I love everything about Crisis Core. I love, the combat was great to me, like just everything. And that's a way older one. So 12 and 15, they're just, I won't play them. So I might play 15. I might play 15 after it's been updated and it's been a while, but other than that.
That's fair. You mentioned 13. 13 is the one for me that right now I'm playing my way through it on my Xbox. I'll take my Xbox when I travel for work, and so I'll play it when I'm in hotels. And I'm really having to force myself to go through it. I think I'm almost tapped out, and it's only because for me, like, I don't mind the combat style. I actually really love the characters. I think Fang is one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, it's the exposition. It's like every 5 minutes we'll have a couple of cool battles, and then we'll stop everything we're doing to have this long drawn out dialogue. And I'm only about like 5 or 6 hours into the game, and I don't know, it's killing me. But that's just on me. Like, I know I can see why a lot of people are fans of the game and why they really enjoy it, but
13 is the one for me that I just
Yeah.
can't.
And I actually understand a lot why people feel that way. I feel what carries it for me is definitely the characters. It's a good cast and a good storyline. I mean, you want to talk about like strong female characters, Lightning. I mean, she definitely carries the torch for, because you don't find really, and I haven't played 13 2 or anything. I have them. I haven't gotten to play it yet because I didn't acquire it until later. But she's just a really strong protagonist and character. You know what I mean? You're used to the Final Fantasy games. You have the male protagonist, which is great, but she just she's badass. And but like there are problems with the game. It is a hallway simulator. Which that's kind of okay to me too. Like, because I don't feel like every single Final Fantasy should be this like massive open world intricate thing. I can appreciate that for what it is. And they did try to I hear I mean, it's different than 12 with the combat, but I can definitely. But that's the thing with Final Fantasy too. They don't want to make the same turn-based JRPG that they made. Now 16 is really divisive too. I really love 16. It is very unlike Final Fantasies, I feel like. It's I feel like if it wasn't called Final Fantasy, people would have been like all over it, but it was kind of missing those like magical like 16 or Final Fantasy aspects that make it Final Fantasy.
It's funny to say because I love all of the characters individually, but 13 was the miss for me. They and I've done like deep dives into it. I've played the games, and they did a good job of making it the Final Fantasy that you hate. They wanted it to structure like a quote unquote hallway system where it felt very linear, which was different from most Final Fantasy. Like, yeah, you had an overlying, hey, go here, do this, ABC, but you could kind of deviate from the set course. In 13, for at least the first 30 hours, you are straight laced. You have to do this, you have to do this. And I don't know, it really faltered for me. And then the rest of the series, they took notion from, Majora's Mask. And I think it was 13.3, where they had like the time. You had like a set amount of time to do a certain thing, or else a crisis would happen. And I just felt like they had so much to do with that universe, and it didn't hit the chords that I was hoping for.
I really hope I don't get too much hate for this, but 10-2.
Yeah.
I just it just wasn't the same. Like, yeah, it just didn't have enough. I guess my expectation was too high for that one, because I expected it to be 10. Just continued, and it wasn't that at all. So it really should have been marketed as just a new game.
Yeah,
instead of 10-2.
I agree with you. I think when I look at 10-2, I haven't played it. I've watched the cutscenes and stuff, so I could get the storyline and everything. But it just wasn't. It wasn't really a direct sequel to Final Fantasy X, outside of just character names and IP. Like, it was so far off. And honestly, I can appreciate the story they wanted to tell with Yuna. But in my opinion, it just felt so uncharacteristic of Yuna.
Yeah.
Like, and I just, at the end of the day, I don't know if the game was like most Final Fantasy games. Obviously, are niche. Like they tell contained stories, and they're their own individual games. But I feel like they're made for a broader audience. Only Final Fantasy X was. I think Final Fantasy X was very like pigeonholed into like, well, you've got to not only love Yuna, but you've also got to appreciate like the I guess almost K-pop culture of it all and stuff like that. It just wasn't. I don't know. My wife has forced me over the last couple of weeks to watch that K-pop Demon Hunter.
Demon Hunters.
and which was better than I expected it to be. I'll tell you that. But that was a better version of Final Fantasy X-2 than what we got in Final Fantasy X-2.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
And see, I actually love K-pop Demon Hunters, because my kids, I've got a 7-year-old and a soon to be 10-year-old. God, and they started watching it like the first week it hit Netflix. And I swear my daughter, 7-year-old, has watched it every single day at least once since then. So it's been playing for what, 3, almost 4 weeks here in my house every single day. Like, it invaded my TikTok, it's invaded my gym playlist on Spotify, which I'm fine with because the soundtrack to it is a jam. But yeah, I agree with you on that. That it's very much, that actually is a better continuation of the story of Final Fantasy X, because the whole story of Final Fantasy X is it's a religious journey, and it's all about sin and shame and all of that, and you get resolve at the end of that one. So I don't know why they felt the need to really push that on into 10-2 and revisit some of those characters. But yeah, I agree. K-pop Demon Hunters actually takes that concept of shame and hiding your shame, hiding your sins, your demon marks or whatever, is not the way to do it. You've got to embrace it and use that to move past it. Like, yeah, that would have been the better continuation.
Whether it's a game that you love or that you hate, you can't deny that few franchises have had the influence on the gaming landscape quite like Final Fantasy. The series revolutionized role-playing games with its cinematic storytelling, innovative battle systems, and technical ambitions, and it raised the bar for narrative depth. Its influence can be traced through countless modern games, and it's inspired developers to not only dream bigger, but left the players expecting more from their stories that they experience. How do you feel Final Fantasy has influenced the broader video game landscape? Like, what do you think the significant impact of Final Fantasy has been on video games?
So when it comes to cinematic, like, it's one thing to keep in mind with video games is that the notion of like the video game as like a cinematic experience and as a vessel for like communicating a story or a message, this is a relatively new thing. Like, I think younger gamers who've kind of been in it for a while don't understand that there was a transition in the 90s where we started to see more ambitious storytelling, and I think Final Fantasy really embraced that and made good on it in a lot of ways. It really decided that it could use the gameplay as and solid gameplay is an important thing too. So having solid, consistent and intuitive gameplay to then kind of serve as the structure for your storytelling, I think that is one of its bigger contributions. I think another thing Final Fantasy has done pretty well has, now not always on every metric, but it does tend to show more diverse characters in the sense that we see a broader variety of characters than some games will have. Like, when you look at the cast of any given Final Fantasy game or several Final Fantasy games and contrast it to other large franchises, there's more variety amongst the types of characters you'll see and the types of stories they'll tell and the types of interactions and relationships they'll have. And this is again because like it's looking at character driven arcs more often than anything else. And so I think that has really opened up the idea of the video game being a vessel to tell a story, and video game characters being kind of fully developed characters rather than avatars, right? So like, it's not the only one to do it, but it is definitely at that sort of the vanguard of really pushing it and really making that something that was seen as being commercially viable for other developers, I think.
The biggest thing is it's given something people, it's given a standard. So like, if another RPG game comes out, if a role-playing game like that comes out, it is oftentimes compared to something like Final Fantasy. Like, how does this RPG stand up to this one? Granted, there's a lot of times that Final Fantasy kind of blows most of them out of the water because they've been around a lot longer, been doing this a lot longer than a lot of these places. But also, you can apply that same background to a fantasy movie or even a comic book series or anything like that. Like, you've got some Batman stuff on the wall back there, and I see some DC stuff, and Captain America over there. You can take that same story kind of thing. Like, think of the story that you find in Final Fantasy VII, right? Now, granted, back in 7, the graphics were, even compared to today's graphics, they're blocky. Except for the new 7. We're not touching that one, though. That's a whole different genre at this point.
Yeah.
But just think about the story that was in Final Fantasy VII. How that story grabbed us and kept us entertained and brought us through 3 discs worth of games back in the day. You see that same kind of hook and grab from stuff nowadays. Because, like, for me, Marvel is usually my more go-to comic series versus DC. But my favorite comic line was Marvel Civil War. It expanded all the characters, but it was one big hook that kept you entertained and kept you coming back to want to read them all.
Yeah.
So if you want something like that, you have to have a set standard. And I think Final Fantasy gives us a standard that has that hook that says, hey, how can you keep people entertained? And it's that deep, immersive story that they give us.
You had Final Fantasy VII, which really, made its mark on the first PlayStation. But I think in gaming as a whole, when you're talking about gaming consoles and you're talking about the culture and the world of gaming, it was Final Fantasy X and the PlayStation 2. And I think, to be honest, I think a lot of people, we give credit to the PlayStation 2 because it's the highest selling console of all time. I don't think you get there without a title like Final Fantasy X. Like, I think if Final Fantasy X had been an average game at best, I don't know if it drives the business for both of those companies the way that it did. I think the fact that Final Fantasy X, not that everyone has to like it, but it's also the highest selling Final Fantasy game of all time, so.
Exactly. You may not like it, but numbers don't lie. Even if you don't like a certain author, you can't deny the fact that, Stephen King has sold 1 billion books. So something's going on right there. So yeah, I could probably because there was a huge change from, for Nintendo when the PlayStation 1 dropped their, Final Fantasy 7, it was almost like a whole new world of gaming because you were either like a side scroller or a top down, bottom up right there. But with Final Fantasy 7, it was that pseudo 3D kind of picturesque rendered, like we never thought it was going to get any better than that. So I think that might have had a big deal with the success of it because a lot of people, 7 was the first soiree. That was the first thing in there, which works great as its own standalone. You don't need to know any of the lore from 7 games ago in order to just jump right into that. And that's another thing that's probably contributed to the success was 10 was another real big move away from the standard graphics into the way that not only the storytelling but just the graphics interface and how it was made to look was so different and so new to everybody. You couldn't help but just, what is this, and get drawn into it.
That's a deep question. I will say they deal with a lot of controversial topics, like you said, and about 10, and Waka too, questioning their religion and everything when they find out that the maesters are corrupted and everything. They deal with the ability to question your religion, and then 7 deals with environmental crises, and there are just so many topics that we don't, I guess they're more taboo to talk about. But something that Final Fantasy does is that it makes it okay to talk about these things, or okay to even think about things. So I think it opens a door for people. So the legacy maybe that it leaves behind is the, accepting that it's okay to talk about these controversial topics. I know in 13 there's a lot of because I did play 13, and it is one of my favorites, and I know it's a very hated one. I don't know why. It's so good. It's way ahead of its time. But just the fact that, like, I think it was a really complicated storyline. I think that's what it was, because I didn't understand it as a kid, and when I replay it, I still have to like stop and I'm like, hold on, what is a Lassie and a Falsey and it's a lot. But the fact that like it's another situation where it's kind of like overthrowing the government and like stuff like that. Like, it's just not topics that I don't know, that we think is acceptable to talk about, but it kind of opens the door to where we can. And I think that's really crazy and amazing, that a game can do that. So I think that's probably the legacy it would leave.
I'm a huge story-based kind of guy, so like Uncharted is my favorite video game franchise. The Last of Us is my favorite video game of all time. I don't think you get games like that or like Exposition 33 without the legacy that Final Fantasy has built.
They actually have said that part of what brought them to where they were was from Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. So
yeah, I mean, they games like Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy and Phantasy Star paved the road for stuff we have now, like Metaphor and Expedition 33, and yes.
Man, Phantasy Star, that's a throwback there. I remember playing.
That's this one.
Yep. I that was actually kind of my first introduction to RPG games and
Phantasy
like
Star.
Phantasy Star, yep. And so,
Phantasy Star, the first one, I still can picture the dungeons in my mind. If I just close my eyes, I can run through the dungeons in my head. Yes.
Final Fantasy extends far beyond the reach of the screen. Its stories of courage, friendship, and hope, it's seeped into our everyday lives, teaching us to persevere through hardships, cherish our companions, and to seek wonder in the unknown. For many, the series isn't just entertainment. It's a source of comfort, inspiration, and personal growth, where lessons learned from pixelated heroes echo through real-world challenges. How do you believe that Final Fantasy has impacted your life outside of gaming? Friendships, career choices, things like that.
Oh, yeah. So, obviously, Final Fantasy brought me close to my big sister. Me and my big sister were not raised together. My grandmother raised my big sister. My mother raised me. So, the only thing we had in common for the longest time, there's about a 7-year age gap between us, was Final Fantasy. And then I found out other friends were playing 10 in high school, even though 10 came out in 2001. And here it is, 2010, 2011, and friends are still playing Final Fantasy X. We would talk about the story, the themes, the monsters. I have made friends waiting in line for pre-releases for like Final Fantasy 16 even. I have made friends online with Final Fantasy 14, which I tried because of Magic, and it's actually pretty good. Shadowbringers is the best. It makes you feel like you're there in an old Final Fantasy game, like you're getting the depth, the story, and the lore.
Yeah.
I've made good friends, personal friends, playing 14 that I can call to this day and just hang out.
That is when you have a community that can almost build itself because of the love that we have for the content. It's amazing. I mean, look, between you and I, when would we have ever crossed paths if it hadn't been for our fandom of Final Fantasy, right?
Exactly. The algorithm knew what it was doing. The algorithm was algorithming.
One thing I will say is that because of Final Fantasy, I'm not gonna say wouldn't be the person I am today, right? But honestly, I probably wouldn't have the drive I have for a lot of things because Final Fantasy is so special to me. I don't know. Honestly, Final Fantasy is one of those games where it's like I really don't think I'd be in the game design field because of it. And it's made such an impactful staple on me that it's like I look forward to every Final Fantasy comes out, right? Like I'm like, oh, Final Fantasy is coming out. Let's go ahead and play. Even if I don't finish, even if I don't like it, I can say, hey, tell my kids later on and eventually, like, hey, like there's a series called Final Fantasy that you should play. Play from the first one, play it all the way to the new one. It's one of those things where, without it, I really don't know where I'd be game design wise. I don't think I'd be in the field because nothing was as inspirational as Final Fantasy was to me. Granted, I played like I love other games, right? That that was also impactful. But Final Fantasy is one of those things that had characters, the music, the story, the way it looked. It was really meaningful to have that. And honestly, without that, I probably wouldn't be as artistic and like as driven as I am without it. So I really appreciate Final Fantasy and I love it dearly.
This question's especially special to me, and I actually wrote this one out because I wanted to make sure I communicated it well. So I am going to have to keep coming back to Spira, and sorry if I get a little teary-eyed, and it's because it's so bright, and like we said, the graphics and everything hold up so well, but the storytelling and everything that they try to communicate in the story. And first of all, in the world that we live in right now, where everybody's opinions about this are a little different, of course, but like we were talking about with the art and the work that they put into the magic cards, the world we live in right now, where AI is kind of stealing art and music and voice acting and theater arts to people like myself who have poured our hearts and lives into all of these acting arts and musical arts, because we love it and it's our passion from the time we're young, and it's what makes us human and connects us, and it's what makes stories and things like Final Fantasy and games and stories like sorry,
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Take your
like
time.
the things that we fall in love with, and like that connect us, like we're talking about. I find worlds like Final Fantasy X and like Spira with less machina very refreshing and not completely void of, right? Because they do still connect us to a point. But a world like Spira, where people are still stopping and speaking with each other, believing in one another and helping each other without blindly believing in the false hope of a powerful entity. A world where the Abed are not just forced to live on one island, where Kilika can rebuild from destruction, where Spira can come together and celebrate peace. And just that there's something warm and hopeful about that kind of world. And I think that that's something I believe that we can still create in our world too. And that's why I'm so drawn to Spira. And that's why I love Final Fantasy X so much.
There are a couple actually. Obviously Xanarkand, when you first start with Final Fantasy X and like that just hits you like right here. You just let it play through and just like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm about to experience. I think it's called Surface of the Mountain, where you climb the mountain from Kamari's tribe. Like that track I listen to religiously once a week. Sanctuary Zeta from 11, that holds a lot of memories for me. But the one that definitely holds like a good chunk of my life, like that I actually have to thank my life for, is You're Not Alone. Like Final Fantasy IX is my favorite game. Obviously, like look at my name, but Final Fantasy IX is my favorite game of all time. And a couple of reasons for that are like the things I learned from that game, but also I was going through a lot during that time, depression, dealing with bullying, dealing with like a lot of stuff, and I was planning to unalive myself that day, but I got to that point and seeing Zidane's friends just helping him out, saying like, "Look, we're here for you. We got your back." And he's like, "No, leave me alone. Just I don't need y'all. I just do it by myself." That was me at that time. And just to get to the point at the end of that, I was in tears for at least a half hour because I was just like, my mom's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "You don't understand." And I did explain to her. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And ever since then, it's just every Final Fantasy, I just have to get it.
Imagine for a moment if you could speak directly to the heroes and villains of Final Fantasy. Finally being able to shout encouragement, ask the tough questions, or even warn the characters about some questionable haircut choices. We'd probably tell Cloud to lighten up and trust his friends, remind Lightning that it's okay to let people in, and we would urge every black mage to keep casting spells, even when the odds seemed impossible. In those moments, our worlds would become part of their journey, bridging the gap between player and character, and making the adventure feel all the more personal.
Obviously, you'd think I'd want to say Yuna, right? But it would be a really I don't want to cheat, but it would be a really hard draw between Yuna and Aerith, and I haven't given Aerith enough credit in this interview because she has really played a big role in my life since 2020 also. Because not to talk about myself, but just to give precedence to how Final Fantasy has influenced my life as an adult. I have been chronically ill, and I have not been able to, unfortunately, utilize any of the career paths that I had, attempted. I have chronic migraines, et cetera, et cetera. It's okay, I still enjoy my life. It's okay. But watching Aerith, she's so happy-go-lucky and loving and looking on the bright side of life. And especially in the remake, I obviously don't know for sure what's going on, but in my opinion, she knows, especially in the first part remake. It seems to me in her memory, she has the memories of what happened in the past. She knows what's going to happen. And she puts on a brave face anyway. And she lives her life the best she can, even though she knows her life's going to be short or, she's going to have to make a sacrifice. And I think that's so beautiful. And I just wish I could tell her that she's such an inspiration to just live. Oh, hold on. I wish I can't pull it off my wall, but Brianna White, she signed a poster when I got to see her last year. And I had her put the quote. It says, "We need to make the most of the time we have. Every moment, every minute, every moment matters." And that,
I love that.
yeah. So I would tell Aerith, thanks for saying that.
I think that there's a Final Fantasy out there for you, and very similar to the, like, if you like card games, there's a card game out there for you. It may not be Magic necessarily, but there is a card game that you'll probably find enjoyment out of if you enjoy board games or card games. Similar to Final Fantasy, I think everyone should try at least one. I'm biased. Try 7. You don't like 7? Try 10 or 9, or But I also like some of the ones that are more universally not well received. So I'm a big fan of 13. I'm a big fan of 15 because the themes inside of those games hit me where I lived. Right? They caused me to feel something, and so I have a different reaction than some of my friends who despise 15, as an example, or 13. So I would say that don't let the number of games and the lore and the mythos steer you away. If you want an action, visually sweeping, incredible RPG, check out Final Fantasy 16. It's gorgeous. It's way cool. And yeah, there'll be weird names and things that you may not fully understand. I think Gestalt is what they call them. Dominant. What a dominant. You may not know what a dominant is in the terms of Final Fantasy 16, but the game will hold your hand. They'll work you through it, and context clues, you can figure it out. So yeah, I would definitely say don't let it turn you away. There is a lot, and if you want to engage with that much, it's an awesome place to be. But if you just want to play a cool game, 16 is great. If you want to play a cool game, I think 15 is great for what it is. It's got some problems, right? They all do. Nothing is perfect, but don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, as they say.